It wasn't just Tony who was confused, Scott was confused too. Is he a member of the Avengers? Scott pointed at John and asked, why haven't I seen him before? It's hard to describe Tony. Not only have you never seen it, I haven't seen it either. John looked into Tony's eyes and saw something was wrong. You don't know me? John stared at Tony. It seems our times are different. In fact, John was more curious about why Tony from the future appeared here. Time travel? The reason John wasn't surprised when he first saw Tony. Because in the magical world, there is a way to go back to the past. Time converter. That thing was available during the 3rd year at Hogwarts. So John wasn't surprised to see Tony, as he had seen another person who had returned through a time turner at Hogwarts. But judging from Tony's reaction, he really did travel through time. But the difference is that the timeline he seems to be in has no intersection with his own. This suddenly reminded John of something else. Multiverse. In other words, he and Tony in front of him were not from the same time. This is not the future Tony of this universe, but the Tony from another universe. Wizards are far superior to ordinary people in the field of time, so when John realized where Tony came from, he sighed. It seems that something went wrong where we originally met. John glanced at Tony. What are you doing here, time traveler? Tony also realized that there might be something wrong with his time device. He looked at John with a serious expression and explained, although I don't know who you are, judging from your reaction, we should know each other here. Yes, I'm Tony Stark from the future, Tony said. As much as I want to explain to you, we're running out of time. He saw that the finishing work had already begun over there and Loki was subdued by the Avengers. Although I don't know who John is, the fact that he can see through the identity of my future person shows that he is not simple. As the smartest person among the Avengers, Tony quickly turned his head and said, we definitely don't have any bad intentions. I can trust you. John agreed so straightforwardly that Tony almost couldn't react. Wait, you believe this? Scott Lang exclaimed in surprise, this is the first time we've met. Let me guess, John said seriously, stroking his chin, you're going to deal with a purple potato monster? Purple potato? Tony's mind suddenly popped up Thanos' face. He had to say that this person's description was very apartment, so you will believe me? No matter what, it's a good thing to be trusted. Tony took a deep breath and said seriously, listen, we need you to keep this secret, complete the time and space robbery, and take the gem at this point in time. It sounds like we stole the gems, but that's not the case. Tony was about to explain, but John was smarter than he thought. The past cannot be changed. Time travel does not change the past, but fills in the past. John calmly analyzed, since you're here, it means we have a common connection. You want to change the past, but you can't do that in a time and space that has already happened. So your presence here is not accidental, but the creation of a new timeline. In other words, it is not a coincidence that these two traveled through time to come here, but to fill in some things that are about to happen now. Tony and Scott looked at each other in silence, and Scott hesitated to speak. Excuse me, do you understand this? I remember that when I went to Tony, I couldn't even explain it clearly, but then someone just showed up and analyzed it clearly for me. John said calmly, I am a wizard, and what you did is not uncommon in magic, or I should say I have experienced it quite a bit. From a temporal perspective, wizards have thrown out too much technology. I won't interfere with what you do in this timeline, John said casually. I'm curious about what I'm doing in another timeline. He was very surprised that he had never met Tony. Just now, through legitimacy, John did not see his own figure at all. It's not just that there's no intersection, there's absolutely no one named John Wick in their stories. John thought that he had done a lot here and it was not so bad that he could not even get a name for himself. There must be some kind of accident that prevented him from showing up. But it can't be that even Thanos doesn't show up, right? Although he doesn't value other people's lives, Thanos' practice of randomly destroying half of the lives. Was he shot away by a snap of the fingers? John felt a little creepy when he thought about it. Is Thanos really that terrifying? John. Tony in this timeline called John. He looked over here and asked, what are you doing there? He didn't think he had anything valuable on the top floor that John would care about. John glanced at future Tony's face, which was full of plea for help, and said casually, I'll call your mortal enemy. Tony. You don't care about my feelings at all, right? Tony tried his best to convince himself not to care about Ivan's attack on him, but John just didn't take it to heart. John casually threw Scott back to future Tony and waved his hand, go do your thing, but let me make this clear in advance. John pointed to the Mind Scepter, that thing is mine. Huh. Although future Tony knew that this time and space was not his previous one, he was still shocked when he heard that John wanted to take the Mind Stone away directly. You know, it was that thing that allowed him to create Ultron and Vision, but if John takes it away here, wouldn't that be a disguised way of erasing the appearance of Vision and the others? Not giving Tony a chance to refuse, John smiled and said, I know you want to take it, but I can prevent you from doing so. This is a deal, Stark. John chuckled. You can use that thing in exchange for me not taking action. It's a good deal. Future Tony's expression changed several times. The Mind Scepter is still too important. If John intervenes, this variable may prevent them from obtaining the gem. Combined with what John said just now, this is probably not the same universe, but another one. In other words, what he did might be part of the birth of this universe. After thinking it over again, Tony heard himself in this time and space urging John again. Okay, I promise you. They would return the gems after using them, and judging by John's expression, they felt that giving them to the Avengers wouldn't cause any trouble. John extended his hand and said with a smile, then it's a deal. Future Tony reluctantly reached out his hand and was about to hold it. A pattern composed of lines and circles flashed across the backs of their hands. What is this? Tony was shocked. Was he being tricked? Don't worry, John said with a smile, shaking his hand. It's just a contract to increase insurance. He said meaningfully, we are exchanging equals, so naturally we need some transcendent witnesses. In the future, Tony had the illusion that he had entered a den of wolves. Scott muttered over his shoulder, I don't think trading with this guy is a good idea. What a coincidence, I had the same idea. Future Tony didn't even know what the contract John was talking about was. John turned and left the corner. Tony in the future saw himself in this time and space assembling the cosmic cube, and he immediately ejected Scott. The ant-sized Scott was not noticed, and Tony in this time and space didn't even notice that there was an extra person on him. Who should I give the magic wand to? Natasha asked Steve, holding the mind wand. John came over and took it very naturally. Steve frowned. The S.H.I.E.L.D. commandos will come and take over the scepter, John. This thing needs to be properly arranged. John looked at Steve and said casually, as a wizard, I feel that I have more say than you on this matter. The elevator door opened and a bald brown man appeared. Behind him are the members of the S.H.I.E.L.D. commandos. Excuse me, Mr. Wick, let's take over this thing. The members of the S.H.I.E.L.D. commandos gradually spread out, and the member in the front even had his hand on the weapon at his waist. The atmosphere became subtle. Natasha came out to smooth things over. S.H.I.E.L.D. needs to confirm the safety of this weapon. She looked at John and slowly approached. John, holding the scepter, looked at Natasha and then at the S.H.I.E.L.D. commandos. I thought this thing could be considered my trophy. Finally, he looked at the others. What do you think? Steve hesitated and said, Sorry, John, this is evidence. I think it's better to hand it over to S.H.I.E.L.D. A wizard, and a wizard with powerful magic. For the S.H.I.E.L.D. commandos to forcibly take the Mind Scepter from John is no less than having to restart the Chitauri raid all over again. Patton stood aside, his arms folded across his chest, and made no comment. Loki scoffed, See, wizard, they are not on the same page as you. Shut up, Loki. Thor's face darkened and he took out the gag and sealed Loki's mouth. But he didn't know who to stand by. John fixed his gaze on Tony, who thought for a moment and said, John, I think I know what you mean. John handed the scepter to the agent in front of him, then our cooperation should end here. He was very cool. He looked at the bald agent in front of him and said with a smile, Hold it tight, Sitwell. Sitwell said with a reckless smile, I will, Mr. Wick. John walked past Natasha and stood with Hulk. Natasha hesitated to speak, but finally shut her mouth. Barton saw her dilemma and patted her shoulder. Mr. Wick, said Rumlow, the captain of the S.H.I.E.L.D. commandos, we are following orders. John nodded slightly and said nothing more. Hulk was next to him, still studying his pants. There are a few other styles, John said. You can try them if you're interested, Hulk. Hulk liked John even more. John's eyes were deep as he watched the S.H.I.E.L.D. commandos take away the scepter. At the same time, Tony also put away the cosmic cube. Everyone got on the elevator and prepared to leave, except Hulk. He is just too big. John patted his waist and said, I also know a big guy. He is my good friend. I will introduce him to you someday. Hulk still went up the stairs obediently. However, before leaving, the already shaky elevator was almost smashed by Hulk's punch. Thankfully, Stark Tower didn't skimp on elevator materials. Sitting in the elevator, everyone here is Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D. members, except John. Sorry, John. Tony tried to dispel the tense atmosphere with a relaxed tone. Let's go eat Arabic kebab together later. It's my treat. In fact, Tony was also very embarrassed. John saved his life for the second time, but he couldn't stand on his side. It was not easy for Tony to have the arrogant billionaire take the initiative to show goodwill and bow his head. John glanced at the reactor on his chest, and in his pupils, he saw the guy who was drilling into the reactor. Steve also spoke. John helped him get out of the dream and woke him up, which was a favor in itself. John, Steve said, Fury won't let you have that item. In Asgard, spoils of battle belong to the individual, Thor added. We usually exchange them for other things. Although Thor looks like a reckless man, he is not stupid at all. On the contrary, he is very smart. Remind John that he can use this as a condition to make S.H.I.E.L.D. bleed. Even the two agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had nothing to say about this. The scene was very funny, with a group of Avengers talking next to John about how to trick S.H.I.E.L.D. The elevator door opened. They walked out and were stopped. The platinum-haired man led the team and blocked the road. Alexander Pierce. Although both are called Pierce, they have nothing to do with Ferdinand, and even their skin color is different. Fury's boss. He came here to intercept the Cosmic Cube and Loki. However, a Secretary General is not a big deal to Thor, the future king of Asgard. The two sides were on the verge of a fight, and John leaned against the front desk to watch the show. The quarrel between the two parties seemed to have nothing to do with him. John took out his cold sandwich and took a bite. What are you going to do? John said casually, and the man next to him, dressed in S.H.I.E.L.D. agent uniform, tried his best to pretend he didn't hear. Soon John saw it. Alexander Pierce is arguing with Tony about the ownership of the Tesseract. Tony suddenly fell to the ground and convulsed, and the whole team panicked. Alexander Pierce, who was so tough just now, suddenly panicked. If Iron Man, who had just protected New York, died in front of him, you can imagine what a huge uproar it would cause. What a ruthless man. He doesn't even spare himself. John sighed. In the panic of the team, the box containing the cosmic cube slid directly to the periphery. Only John saw clearly that it was a little guy who kicked the box away. The Special Forces member next to him immediately stepped forward to pick up the box, without looking at the still panicked crowd, turned around and left to open the stair door. I suggest you don't do that. Just as John finished speaking, he saw the staircase door suddenly opened. Hulk knocked the man out directly and walked out with an angry face. He had walked up hundreds of floors of stairs and was extremely angry. No. Stairs. The box that flew out opened and the cosmic cube slid out from it. Loki looked at the cosmic cube at his feet, then looked in the direction of John. John looked at Loki quietly, and the two looked at each other for 2 seconds. Loki hurriedly picked up the cosmic cube, his body surrounded by the blue channel, and a look of pride appeared in his eyes. John calmly snapped his fingers, and Loki's body stiffened, and the blood instantly drained from his face. The cosmic cube fell down. Loki wants to escape. Patton, who was among the crowd surrounding the fallen Tony, saw this scene and shouted. Now Loki was pinned down by more than a dozen people in an instant. Loki, who clearly had no ability to resist, was being raped by 2 men. It must have been extremely painful. The cosmic cube also slid to John's feet in the chaos. How do you calculate this? John was a little confused. With his right hand covered in silver, John reached out and picked up the cosmic cube. Who should it be given to? Thor cured Tony's convulsions with an electric shock, and they all stared at John. Alexander Pierce ordered, "Hand it over, Wick." His men surrounded John, some even drawing their weapons. This scene is truly chilling. John threw the gem over and said indifferently, "Do you all like to treat your saviors like this?" The cosmic cube was just activated by Loki and now carries a high temperature high enough to melt the ground. Alexander subconsciously reached out to take it, but his hands were almost broken. It was Thor who put the Rubik's Cube back into the box. During this process, John had a cold face. And he also noticed that the other two had left. Without arguing with them, John left Stark Building. The episode where Loki almost escaped made everyone more vigilant. This means that another Tony has no chance to take the gems here. Inside an Arabic kebab restaurant in New York, the owner and the clerk were cleaning the walls left behind by the Chitauri attack. The superheroes who saved the world chewed their food with despair. Only Thor enjoyed his meal. Find out what your child has eaten before. You really should go to Asgard with me, John. Thor swallowed his food and said, "You will definitely like it there." After taking a bite of the bread with the barbecue, John stopped eating and said calmly, "There's a chance." Saul extended a sincere invitation, and John neither refused nor accepted it. He took out his pocket watch and looked at it. "I wanted to ask you before, where did you buy your pocket watch?" Tony regretted suggesting coming here for barbecue. "I have to say it's a shame that this restaurant didn't fall under the Chitauri attack." Tony, who has eaten many delicious foods, couldn't stand this terrible barbecue. Steve said it tasted worse than the army rations he ate during World War II. Banner stared at the burrito as if he was studying some scientific problem, such as why the ingredients and steps were fine, but this thing was just hard to swallow. From a marketing perspective, it's a miracle the store is still open. This is custom-made and can't be bought. John looked at the pocket watch and walked around, then stood up and left. The Avengers watched John leave, and they all felt sorry for him. He escorted a nuclear bomb into space, but was held at gunpoint. Tony expressed his dissatisfaction. Steve couldn't argue, and Barton said, "I think he's a very good guy." Banner looked at his pants uncertainly. They were the most comfortable pair of pants he had ever worn. And another thing is also fermenting around the world. At the same time, it announces the arrival of a new era, the age of superheroes. On TV, the most lively feast from the internet is being broadcast. Although this event was identified as an alien invasion, the presence of superheroes was more than just a comfort to many people. "It's really nice to have them around. You know, there are people who can protect us." "I love you, Thor." Some people confessed their love in public, some wore blue clothes with shields, and some shaved their beards to look like Tony. The young mother holding her child was interviewed with gratitude. "I don't know who he is, but he saved me and my child. I just want to say thank you." There was also a family of 3 who were rescued. The man hugged his wife and daughter with tears in his eyes. "He saved me, he is my hero. I will never forget that it was he who saved us from aliens." A young man among the residents of Hell's Kitchen held up a painting in his hand. The man looked a bit like Captain America. If you look closely, you can see that the man was carrying many weapons. Some people even tattooed Ivan wearing fighter armor on their bodies. The Iron Soldiers played a significant role in this incident, ensuring the safety of the people of New York to the greatest extent possible. Hammer Industries' stock continues to rise, showing signs of becoming a new leader. Video paused. Inside Taran Industries, 5 people sat around a round table. John raised an eyebrow and said, "Heroes, what do you want to say?" The second alliance outside of the Avengers. Matt couldn't see, but he could hear. This alien invasion not only gave birth to the Avengers, it also officially brought these masked vigilantes onto the stage. Dax looked excited. He heard the praise and gratitude towards him. Despite the serious injuries, he still felt satisfied, and the darkness in his heart gradually faded. Ivan sat there carelessly, studying a Chitauri weapon in his hand. Hattie was very dissatisfied and said, "Hero? I saved people and participated in the battle. Why didn't anyone mention it?" "Because the people you rescued are sitting here." John glanced at her and said, "How about checking the surveillance?" Hattie was silent. After all, who among the agents wants to be on the news? Glancing at Natasha, who was also an agent on the news, she sneered, "A conspicuous bag." "I'm going back," Matt said. He stood up and said to John, "Thank you, Mr. Wick." He was talking about this suit. If it weren't for this suit, he would have died several times already. As he was about to leave, John said, "Do you think something like this will happen again?" Matt paused. The reason why he didn't want to stay here was that his inner persistence was incompatible with his surroundings. Whether it is the Night Ghost Dax or the fighter Ivan, they are not anti-heroes who care about human lives. This goes against Matt's grain. When John mentioned the heroes, Matt was actually conflicted. Everything that happened today and the alien appeared in my mind. Will it happen again? Nobody knows. I don't know. Matt shook his head. I can't know the future. Then let me tell you, how could I know? John said calmly, "Do you think this is the biggest disaster?" He shook his head. "This is just the beginning." Not only Matt, but everyone else's eyes were focused on John. "The Avengers," John said, "they now represent the most powerful force in the world. The emergence of superheroes means the birth of supervillains. The disasters we may encounter in the future will only be worse than today." "I don't want to enslave you," John said, stroking his ring in his seat with an indifferent expression. "As a friend, I need to make it clear to you that the disasters of the future will far exceed those of today. I don't want my friends to die out there, and I don't want to see anyone suffer." Matt turned around, looked at John, and asked, "What are you going to do?" "An alliance." John stopped stroking, a faint smile on his face, like the Avengers. "We are different from them," John said. "They represent justice, and we." "That's right." Matt was silent for a moment, then asked, "What are we called?" John looked at the Avengers in the video and said, "Just remember, we are the Second Alliance, and we are also the right alliance. No name needed, or it could be called the Second Alliance." Matt joined inside. At the same time, Ivan and Dax unsurprisingly also became members. They cannot be said to be righteous, but they are a group of people united together. Hattie is also in it, and her status is somewhat similar to Natasha's. John thought about it. Ivan is about the same size as Tony in his armor. Dykes is roughly equal to Patton. Matt is about the same as Steve. Hutty is about the same as Natasha. What is your own positioning? I have no interest in smashing things. Thor? Forget it, I don't swing the hammer myself. The Second Alliance is roughly equivalent to the Avengers. Although we are missing two main fighting forces, it is not a big deal. Very unfortunate news. The Mind Scepter is gone. Stolen, to be exact. S.H.I.E.L.D. has locked onto a suspect. As sad as it was, Fury had to consider it from the perspective of all humanity. So he came to the door. So, John sipped his coffee and said sarcastically, "You think I used the clone technique, sneaked over to the elevator, and transformed into Steve to take that thing?" John smiled and said, "Why don't you listen to what you are saying, braised egg?" Fury, who was called a boiled egg, was not angry. "We hope you can help find it." "Why not, Banner?" "He left, and your magic can work." After Fury finished speaking, he saw John curl his lips. "Do you think I'm Jesus?" John exclaimed in amazement. "When I'm struck on the left cheek, I turn the right cheek? Everyone has a temper, especially when you risk your life to protect this city. Someone points a gun at you, and later accuses you of stealing." John smiled and said, "I'm very busy. If there's nothing else, don't meet me." "Wick," Fury sighed deeply, "Talon Industries has taken away a lot of Chitauri debris. Those are dangerous and need to be processed in a centralized manner." "You don't even believe what you said," John said disdainfully. "You just wanted to do research. You took my trophy, and now you want to take another one." He said with a sullen look, "Do you really think I need S.H.I.E.L.D.? Fury knew that his words were too much, and he didn't mean to make John spit out those things. "Retrieve the scepter, and you can keep those things," Fury said. "That scepter can brainwash the best agents. It's too dangerous." He wanted to trade for Chitauri technology. Unfortunately, John didn't buy it and said casually, "Moss, give dear Director Fury a good show." "Yes, sir." Moss projects a video. The video shows a nuclear bomb flying towards Manhattan, New York, which was sent into the sky by Tony. It can be seen from the video that the target is not the Chitauri, but Manhattan. "You guys are quite capable," John said calmly. "I haven't seen any news online about dropping a nuclear bomb on Manhattan yet. Those stupid idiots decided to sacrifice the entire population of Manhattan, and this video is enough to get them fired." John raised an eyebrow and asked, "How much do you think this video is worth?" "Perhaps some are willing to be sacrificed in exchange for peace," John chuckled, "but I guarantee they don't like being abandoned." Fury's face darkened as he dropped a nuclear bomb on Manhattan. Even if there was no explosion in Manhattan, as long as this decision was made, it would be made known to the citizens who survived the disaster and had no time to think. They were once abandoned, and the damned people in power wanted to wipe them out along with them. That's enough. It is enough to make those people lose their composure, and enough to label the World Security Council that made the decision as garbage. Is it wrong to launch a nuclear bomb? There's nothing wrong with that. The mistake was that a savior told them that this was an enemy that could be defeated without sacrificing Manhattan. John looked calm. "You still want to get something from me now?" Fury said solemnly, "The military has decided to increase the order. Now they need me." John waved his hand. "The whole world has seen how powerful the Iron Soldier is. John has the chips in his hands, so he can be as arrogant as he wants." Fury really had no reason to refute it. The Iron Soldier was a powerful weapon. As for the production method, no one else knows it except Hammer Industries. Stark can do it, but will he help produce it? The answer is no. This is a monopoly business, and monopoly is the only business in the world that will not make a loss. So John could be fearless. "Retrieve the scepter," Fury said carefully, "and I will give you something else." He reached out and pulled out a test tube half filled with a red substance. I know your father still holds shares in PIM Technologies, Fury said, and this is a sample left over from Howard Stark's attempt to replicate PIM Technologies' core technology. John looked at that half of the PIM particle for a moment. He said calmly, "You can get it back, but it must be mine." "But I can rent it to you for research," John said calmly. "I don't think my country is incapable of studying that scepter." His country? This does not refer to the UK. Then it can only be another Magic Kingdom. John's words further confirmed Fury's thoughts. John knew the whereabouts of the scepter, or could find it. Rather than getting nothing, renting research is not a bad idea. Fury agreed. At the same time, Howard Stark attempted to replicate the formula of the PIM particle. When John got this thing, a strange look flashed in his eyes. After seeing Fury off, he walked into the underground laboratory. The azure box glows in the crystal container. On the other side, a long express box lay on the table. John opened it, revealing the glowing mind scepter. This thing was delivered to my door by a white-haired old man. It also means that in another universe, the Avengers succeeded. Now there are 3 things from out of this world in John's underground laboratory: the Destroyer, Icebox, and Mind Scepter. However, when it comes to the uniqueness of items, the Mind Scepter ranks first. The Mind Stone inside it is one of the Infinity Stones and has the ability to easily brainwash S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. As a special group of people like agents, they need strong will and wisdom. As the best among them, Patton's abilities are unquestionable. In the magical world, he also has the ability to brainwash and control others. The Imperious Curse. This is an evil power known as one of the 3 unforgivable curses. For a time in the wizarding world, there was chaos caused by the followers of a noseless evil wizard named Voldemort. After Voldemort's downfall, his followers used the excuse that they were under the Imperious Curse to avoid being sent to Azkaban and clear their names. Although both are forms of control, the Imperious Curse is not as powerful as the Mind Gem. Some individuals with strong willpower can break free from, or even become immune to, the Imperious Curse. A certain Mr. Potter, who wishes to remain anonymous and is now a legendary aura in the wizarding world, successfully broke free from the Imperious Curse through willpower while attending Hogwarts. That was still a group of students. It is extremely difficult to control the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, who are all above the level of ordinary humans. John opened the express box and took out the Mind Scepter, which was Loki's greatest reliance in coming to this world. It is also the Mind Scepter that allows Loki to brainwash Selvig and others to use them for his own purposes and create a machine to activate the Tesseract. Now holding it in his hand, John could once again feel the powerful and inexplicable energy housed in the container of the scepter. The magic power has increased. He looked for the experimental subject and waved the mind wand in his left hand. A basketball-sized ball of light landed on the center of the metal bull's eye, turning it into molten iron. Tiske, what a pity, there are quite a few people eyeing this thing. In fact, John really wanted to keep the Mind Scepter. But no matter whether it is because of the correct direction of the future or because the scepter itself was given to Loki by Thanos, he can't keep any of it. The matter was too complex, and Nick Fury had long suspected that he was the one who stole the Mind Stone. Although Fury couldn't imagine it, this thing was actually given to John by his beloved Avengers themselves. But how does the saying go, the process is wrong, but the result is right? To round it off, there's nothing wrong with saying it was stolen by John. John didn't want to hand it over to Fury so quickly, so he used various instruments that combined modern and magical elements and connected them to the Mind Scepter. Like the Cosmic Cube, the Mind Scepter contains numerous powers. When this power is applied to the human body, it can enhance mental strength and achieve a qualitative leap. John touched the glowing Mind Scepter with the Elder Wand, and a yellow crystal energy thread was dragged out by him. Place this strand of energy in the palm of your hand and crush it. His mental power was amplified. He could clearly sense the traces of the water cup inside the house shaking slightly as the vehicle was driving. You can also see that in the dilapidated Stark building, Tony is hugging Pepper and planning the new renovation of the Stark building. A trace of energy can allow John to cover the entire Manhattan with his mental power. The energy lasted for 5 minutes, and John came out of that trance. He looked at the Mind Scepter. If he could absorb all the energy. Unfortunately, for the sake of the plot, John couldn't do this. He shook his head with some regret. His right hand was covered in silver, and he stared at a super magic crystal on the back of his hand. But then again, there is no one who does not allow himself to absorb some energy, right? If you look at the gloves, a single color is boring, but colorful ones are beautiful. He stroked his chin and narrowed his eyes like a cunning fox. Essentially, magic crystals can not only provide energy, but can also be used for storage. Since I can't keep the Mind Scepter, I'll just take half of its energy as a token of my appreciation. John got down to work right away and took out the Crucible, one of the top 10 most popular wizards. Compared to essential items like wands and brooms, crucibles can be said to be the most indispensable thing for wizards in the field of potions and alchemy. A crucible refines everything. This is the most basic understanding of every potion master. Continuously draw energy from the Mind Scepter. Thanks to the fact that the Mind Scepter itself functions as a weapon. And weapons must have a way to control and output the energy of the Mind Stone. If you find the right method, you can release it continuously without even having to do anything by John. As he began to draw energy, it also meant that he had to go into seclusion. The icebox emitted cold air inside the crystal box, and was borrowed by John. The icebox can freeze everything, even energy. Loki once used the icebox to freeze the Rainbow Bridge in motion. Even Thor couldn't break it, so he had to smash the Rainbow Bridge to stop it. John wants to use the icebox to freeze the energy extracted from the Mind Scepter, and add his super magic crystal to create a weakened version of the Mind Stone. Although it is not as powerful as a real Mind Gem, the energy it carries is enough to allow the world to live at a level of global shared warmth. The wand stirred the crucible, injecting blending and refining magic into it. The power gathers together to form a beautiful golden color. It reminds me of Felici's. He stared at the golden crucible, the liquid inside clashing with energy and changing. When it reached the critical point, the golden liquid inside boiled and rolled, and he threw the super magic crystal he took off into it. All the energy poured into the crystal. The purple super magic crystal disappeared, and was replaced by a yellow, crystal clear oval gem. This gem is extremely unstable, and one can even feel the tremendous energy inside it, like a volcano about to explode. John took out the icebox and activated it. Eternal ice, with the power to freeze everything, collides with the yellow gem. The huge turmoil caused by the two made the entire laboratory tremble. A golden rune rotated on John's right hand, and the destroyer armor immediately came in front of him and took a defensive posture. The competing forces finally decided the winner, and the laboratory turned into a giant freezer. The energy of the gem stabilized, and John asked the destroyer to walk over and pick up the gem with his thick fingers. After making sure it was stable, John reached out and took the gem. It is about the same size as a magic crystal, but there is a yellow light flowing through the gem, which even the top-grade yellow gem does not have. Let's just call you Limited Gem. John nodded with satisfaction and placed the gem into the empty gem space in his right hand. The moment it was put in, strands of energy flowed through John's veins, causing John to make a sound. The energy contained in this gem far exceeds that of the super magic crystal. It can also subtly increase John's magic power and strengthen his mental strength. He began to regret letting Thor take the Tesseract away so quickly. If he had extracted the energy of the Tesseract, he would have 2 finite gems. I have to find a chance to go to Asgard and get the Cosmic Cube in the future. The silver hand faded and turned into a ring on John's right hand. He looked at the icebox again. The upper limit of this thing is really high. John touched his heart, still thinking about what was missing from the icebox. He could feel that this thing was not the complete version. John couldn't get the missing one for a while. Because the thing itself was exiled by oneself, if you want to get it out, you need to go back to that place. The upper limit of the complete version of Icebox must be above the Destroyer. A sacred artifact of Jotunheim, Johann is the only one besides the Frost Giants who can use the Icebox. He continued to study the Icebox in the laboratory for some time. He was not in a hurry to agree to Fury's request. After all, he already had the Mind Scepter in his hand, so there was no need to rush. He was not in a hurry, but Fury was dumbfounded. He agreed to help find the scepter, but John ended up staying at home for half a month. There is absolutely no intention of going out. If he hadn't been afraid of John's strength, he would have wanted to go in and take the man out. Half a month passed, and new things happened in New York. As the era of superheroes began, a brand new department was born. The Damage Control Bureau, created jointly by the government and Stark, appeared in the ruins of the battlefield and began to take over the Chitauri weapons. Adrian Toombs is directing his colleagues to clean up the wreckage of the Battle of New York. Those Chitauri warships fell down quickly and efficiently, but it made life difficult for the common people. They lost their homes and had no place to seek justice. Chitauri technology is more robust than the technology of this world and is extremely difficult to clean up. Adrian is a gambler. He saw the opportunity and took the initiative to sign a contract with the city government. I mortgaged my house, bought a truck, hired people, and started taking over the cleanup tasks. But he never expected that just when he and his fellow workers were working hard and preparing to move towards a better tomorrow with their hands and hard work, someone would come and pour a bucket of cold water on them. Everyone, please pay attention. A middle-aged white-haired woman wearing a group of white hats walked into where Adrian worked. They came with great momentum, and it was obvious at first glance that they were not to be trifled with. According to Executive Order 396B, all post-war cleanup work now falls under our jurisdiction. The white-haired woman looked at Adrian. Thank you for your service. Leave this to us. Adrian was confused. Who are you? The other party said, professionals. He was really confused. He signed a contract with the city government, and now someone walked in and told him that he was unemployed? Look, I have a contract with the city to clean up this rubble, so... Before he could finish his sentence, the white-haired woman said, I'm sorry, Mr. Toombs, but all cleanup is now under our control. This one sentence killed Adrian's work, and the woman continued, please hand over all the alien objects you have collected, or we will sue you. Ma'am, I should. The woman didn't want to pay any attention to Adrian and prepared to leave after making her announcement. Adrian hurried after her, pleading, please, don't go, ma'am. He has invested all his fortune here. It is impossible for him to stop working and become unemployed without any explanation. I bought these trucks specifically for this cleanup, and I hired a team of people who have families to support. I have a family to support too, he said, trying to make the woman understand how difficult it was for him. If he lost his job, it would not only affect him but also the people under him. I've staked everything on this. I'll lose my house. I'm sorry, sir, there's nothing I can do. He underestimated the ruthlessness of these people and even broke the contract lightly. This made Adrian very angry, and he felt a surge of rage in his heart. The man in a suit and white hat who was taking over the job nearby sneered, maybe next time we should not overestimate our abilities. This instantly ignited Adrian's anger. What did you say? He was so angry that he had no place to vent his anger, so he punched the man in the face. The crowd that took over the work immediately drew their weapons and aimed at Adrian. This sobered up the angry Adrian as if cold water had been poured over his head. Looking at those gun muzzles, even though he was angry, he had no way to do anything. How can ordinary people fight against those big guys? The white-haired woman asked the group to put down their guns, walked out and said calmly, if you have any dissatisfaction, you can go to my superiors. Who is your superior? Adrian laughed angrily. But in the end, his arms were no match for his thighs. Beep beep. A large truck honked its horn outside. When no one responded to him, the driver inside got out. Adrian, what are you doing? Move the car outside, I can't get through. The visitor walked into the room cursing and stopped when he saw the scene inside. Ferdinand. Adrian was feeling aggrieved when he saw an acquaintance coming to his door. During this time he was cleaning up the alien debris, and Ferdinand was another member of the team. They are not owned by the government, they are a private company. Originally, Taran Industries did not intend to take over all of it, so they agreed on positions with Adrian, with each person responsible for one side. Ferdinand came over angrily, and was stunned when he saw the tense scene. What happened? He and Adrian had a good relationship. Adrian's wife is somewhat related to Ferdinand, and can be called cousin. Adrian said angrily, I didn't know they came here to kick me out and make me unemployed. The white-haired woman noticed Ferdinand and said indifferently, according to Executive Order 396B, the Damage Control Bureau will take over the post-war cleanup. She stared at Ferdinand, you're from another cleanup company, right? All alien debris must be turned in. What? Ferdinand was stunned. Wait, I need to call my boss. He hurriedly turned around and made a phone call. Boss, we're fired. On the other end of the phone, John had just come out of the laboratory where he had been for half a month. When he picked up the phone, he was also stunned. Fired? Who fired me? In this world, besides me firing others, is there anyone else who can fire me? John was silent for a moment. You'd better organize your words so that I don't dock your salary. Ferdinand also realized that what he said seemed to be wrong. Alien debris recovery, someone called the Damage Control Bureau won't let us continue working and demands we hand in the materials. Listening to Ferdinand's words, John finally understood what was going on. It turns out that there is an official organization that wants to prevent private recycling of materials, which is understandable. Only then did he remember this matter. Ferdinand had nothing to do after returning from vacation, so he was assigned to manage Talon Industries' work of recovering Chitauri weapons. Now we must be in trouble. In response, John said calmly, "Give her the phone." Ferdinand was obedient and walked up to the woman and handed her the phone. "My boss wants to speak to you." The atmosphere became subtle, and both parties, who had been on the verge of a fight, looked at the phone. The same goes for Adrian. You have to know that he, the person who signed the contract with the city government, was kicked out. What kind of magical power does Ferdinand's boss have? The white-haired woman answered the phone. "Hello. The person opposite you is representing Talon Industries in the recycling. If you have any objections, you can go find your superior. If you dare to stop me, I will have your superior find you." This simple sentence left the white-haired woman stunned. "Who are you?" "John Wick." "All right, hand the phone to my driver." The white-haired woman handed the phone to Ferdinand, still a little dazed. The name John Wick is not unfamiliar. Her department was originally established by Stark Industries and the government. Not to mention her, even Tony Stark had to give face to John. Ferdinand saw the change in the woman's attitude and gained a clearer understanding of his position as the boss's driver. As a driver, the more influential his boss is, the more face he has. "Look, no matter who you are, you have to give face to my boss." Thinking of this, he straightened his back and picked up the phone. "Since you just said something careless, I'll deduct 200 from your salary." His proud face instantly collapsed, and Ferdinand said miserably, "I just spent my salary in Miami." "That's your business," John said coldly. Ferdinand was heartbroken. When Adrian saw that Ferdinand had gotten it done with just one phone call, he immediately leaned over to his wife's brother, with whom he had no idea how distantly related he was, and whispered, "Ferdinand, help me. I can't lose this job. I've mortgaged my house to the bank." He played the family card. "Liz is still in school. I can't let her live a life of sleeping on the street and not going to school." Ferdinand thought of his niece, who was so distantly related to him, and his heart softened. He said to the person on the other end of the phone, "Boss, there are others here who have also been cleared out. They have also been expelled." Adrian was fully expecting a good outcome. Hearing this, John said calmly, "Let's just take care of ourselves, Ferdinand." Adrian was closer and heard these words. His face froze. Ferdinand gave him a helpless look. "Do I really have to sleep on the street?" When Adrian thought of this, he felt sad. The white-haired woman gave a ruthless order, and these guys were unemployed at that moment. "Wait!" Ferdinand struggled, and finally gritted his teeth and said, "Are you willing to take your people and change your boss?" Adrian stopped and looked back. Ferdinand seemed to have made a great decision and said, "I can have you work with me. My boss is short of staff. What do you think?" The latter sentence was said on the phone. Ferdinand, in a rare moment of reflection, analyzed the pros and cons and said, "Adrian's team is very professional, and our company is still short of manpower in this area." John thought about it and thought that the company seemed to be in need of people in this field. He nodded and said, "If that's the case, you can talk to him." Ferdinand's tense face relaxed, revealing a row of large white teeth. "I'll take care of it, boss." The phone was hung up. Ferdinand found his brother-in-law, who he didn't know how distantly related he was, and said, "My boss is willing to accept you and your team." Adrian said excitedly, "Thank you so much, Ferdinand." Adrian's team turned into professionals from Talon Industries, and these wreckages were transformed into Talon Industries. Even the Damage Control Bureau has no right to take it away. Adrian had a relieved smile on his face as he saved his job. Back home, when he saw his daughter and wife, he couldn't help but go up and give them a big hug. He even made his wife feel embarrassed. "You have a good brother." Adrian felt emotional as he kissed his wife on the cheek. When his wife mentioned that distant relative who became a driver for a big shot, he didn't take it seriously and even looked down on her. "I didn't expect it to be such a big deal. I don't know if I have a chance to get close to that big shot." Liz, who was in the same grade as Peter, blinked, not knowing that her family was almost bankrupt.